Shalom, beloveds of the King. Here we are once again. Praise Abba Yahuwah as we are counting down to our book of Yeshayahu, as we have 10 chapters left to cover, and then we finish this powerful book. And today we're really going to look at a very powerful chapter where we really see Abba Yahuwah's plan of an inclusive house, where the house was not supposed to be only for the house of Israel, but for those all that are going to gather from around the nations, that are going to seek His face, that are going to seek His name, that are going to seek His ways, that He too makes a way for them. So what a powerful chapter we are going to cover today. Let us pray. Abba Yahuwah, I just want to praise and I just want to thank you. My Father, when I look at the work of your hands and the powerful work that you are doing in this hour, and if your watchmen would just understand, if your shepherds would just understand, if your prophets would just understand the bigger plan of what you are busy with, because this is part of a much bigger plan of what you are busy with than just the fact that you came to bring salvation to a bunch of people. You have come to restore. You have come to restore a house. You have come to be able to create a dwelling place for yourself that is going to be made up of a group of people that will carry your presence, that will be able to bring glory and honor to your name. And so, Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you. I thank you, my Father, for this powerful, powerful plan that you showed me in 2008. The greatest love story. The greatest love story where you are the one that is going to be able to find your lost sheep, and you are going to bring them into the fold and into your house, and you will be the one to shepherd them, because you have given us your Son, Messiah Yahushua, who is the Master Shepherd. And so, Abba Yahuwah, I want to thank you that we will be those that will truly return back to your ways, that we will guard, that we will keep, that we will shamar, and that we will shamar your word, and that we will keep your ordinances and your statutes and your Torah and your commands, and we will keep your Sabbaths holy. I praise and I thank you for this teaching, Father. Speak to our minds and speak through my lips the very oracles that will come from your heart. I praise and I thank you, Abba Yahuwah, for everything that you are doing in our lives in this hour, and for where the great awakening is taking place, of where you are waking up your people. Many are asleep, but you will give them the right shepherds that will wake them up and bring them into the fold. So I thank you, Abba Yahuwah, that you will open up your word, break it open to us today, for us to understand the very oracles that come from your heart. I praise and I thank you for this in Yeshua's name. Amen. And so praise Abba Father, we are reading Isaiah chapter 56, and we read from verse 1. Thus said Yahuwah, God right ruling, and do righteousness, for near is my deliverance to come, and my righteousness to be revealed. Now here we get the crux of the foundation of our lives, because this is what he's telling us. We are to guard right ruling, and we are to do righteousness. So we must understand, because this is the foundation of the very thing that we need to be able to do, because this is what he's asking of us. And he says to guard. The word guard is the word for shamar, which is 8104, and that is to keep, to guard, to observe, to give heed, to keep watch. So you see, shamar has to do with seeing and keeping. Shamar has to do with hearing and keeping. So shamar is to see and then to watch, and then to do, and then to observe, give heed, keep watch, watchman, wait for, observe, keep the Sabbath or the commandments, perform a vow, keep and protect, observe, it's to preserve. So it's to keep, it's to preserve, it's to protect, it's to observe, it's to regard, it's to reserve. So all of this, that's why it talks about that we are to hear and that we are to see. They blind, their eyes do not see because they don't shamar, and they don't hear, they don't shamar. Because shamar is to hear and to obey, and shamar is to see and to obey. So it's to keep, it's to guard, it's to observe, it's to give heed, it's to keep watch. It's a watchman, it's to wait for, it's to observe. So it's to keep the Sabbath, the covenant, the commands, to perform a vow, to preserve, to protect, to observe, to regard and to reserve. Then he says, we are to guard, to do all of this, right ruling. What is right ruling? Right ruling is the word mishpat, which is H4941. Mishpat. And that is justice, ordinance, law, lawgiver, rule, divine law. So you see, we are to keep his divine law. We are to keep his ordinances. And we are to do righteousness. And we are to do righteousness. So we are to do righteousness. We are to do what is right. We are to tzadikah, or tzaddik. It's righteousness. So this is justice, to have a just cause, to be in the right, to be justified in administering law. It is lawful, right in one's cause, vindicated by Yahuwah, observing divine laws, one whose way, so this is one whose way, so a righteous person that is doing righteousness is one whose way of thinking, feeling, acting is wholly conformed to the will of Yahuwah. So understand, this is what the divine law is. This is righteousness, is to observe his divine laws. It's to be wholly conformed to the will of Yahuwah, which means our mind, our will, and our emotions need to be lined up with his mind, with his will, with his way of doing things. And so we must understand that this is what is righteousness. Now he says, for near is my deliverance. Near is our deliverance, who is Yahushua. So near is Yahushua to come, who will be the perfect Torah, the perfect righteousness. He became righteousness in the flesh. He became Torah in the flesh. Yahushua becomes the righteousness, so that now through him we have salvation and restoration and healing and deliverance and everything we need in the fullness of the package that he's come to give us. So isn't that powerful? That's why he says, because my righteousness to be revealed and my righteousness to be revealed, he will come and reveal the righteousness, so that now through him we are able to walk righteous before the Father, because he became the living Torah. And if he's going to dwell in us, he brings us the Ruach of Yahuwah, who's going to be able to write the Torah in our hearts so that we may fully walk it out. And we will be able to shamar, hear, and we will be able to shamar, see, observe, watch, and do. Praise Abba Yahuwah. This is not just a hearing word, this is a doing word. And so if we go and have a look at Psalm 85, let's look at Psalm 85. Psalm 85 from verses 6 to 13, and it says, "Would you not revive us again, for your people to rejoice in you? Show us your loving commitment, O Yahuwah, and give us your deliverance. Let me hear what what El Yahuwah speaks, for he speaks peace to his people and to his lovingly committed ones, and let them not turn again to folly. Truly, his deliverance is near to those who fear him." So you see, his deliverance is going to be near to those who fear him. "For esteem to dwell in our land. Loving commitment and truth shall meet. Righteousness," listen, loving commitment and truth shall meet. So, loving commitment and the truth of Yahuwah's word shall meet. Righteousness and peace shall kiss. Wow, I thought that is so beautiful the way he puts this. So righteousness and peace shall kiss. Why? Because Yeshua becomes the righteousness in the flesh, and he is the Prince of Peace, and they are one, and they kiss. So therefore, when we're walking out the righteous ways of Yahuwah, we have the fullness of peace, because it's Yahushua who is dwelling in us, who is righteousness, and he's the one that's come to be able to perfect the righteousness in us, where we can walk it out. Therefore, we will kiss peace, who is a person. This is what I always say. Peace is a person, and his name is Yahushua, because he is the Prince of Peace. And so it says, "And then they shall kiss. Truth sprouts forth from the earth, and righteousness looks down from the heaven." So look at this. Righteousness is looking down from the heaven. "Indeed, Yahuwah gives what is good, and our land yields its increase." Righteousness goes before him. So you see, who went before Yeshua? Righteousness went before Yeshua, because he's going to become the fullness of the righteousness. Righteousness goes before him and prepares a way for his footsteps. And so praise Abba Yahuwah. He prepares a way for his footsteps and prepares a way for his footsteps. So you see, it's righteousness that's going to go before us, and that is who is going to go before us. He is going to be able to make sure that he's got his salvation, his deliverance that is going to come, and my righteousness to be revealed. Because once Yeshua comes, he reveals the fullness of righteousness. Isaiah 56 verses 2 says, "Blessed is the man who does this, and the Son of Man who becomes strong in it, guarding the Sabbath lest he profane it, and guarding his hand from doing any evil." So here we go. Blessed is the man guarding his Sabbath, not to profane it. So we understand what the guarding is. We've done the guarding, which is to guard, which is the Shema, to keep, to guard, to observe, to give heed, to keep watch, to wait for, to keep the Sabbath and the covenant commands, to preserve, to regard, to reserve, to protect, to observe. This is everything that we are to guard his Sabbath, lest he profane it, and guarding his hand from doing any evil. So blessed is the man who does this, and the Son of Man who becomes strong in it. So you see, the Son of Man is going to become strong in it, because he's going to become the fullness of Torah in the flesh. Guarding the Sabbath, lest he profane it, and guarding his hand from doing evil. So he's not to do any evil, and he's going to guard himself from doing evil. And so what does it mean to profane? So we are not to profane the Sabbath. What is the word profane? Profane is H2490, which is the word halal. And that is to defile, to pollute, to desecrate, to make common, to violate the honor, violate the honor of. So it's to dishonor, to violate a covenant, to treat as common. So do you see? That's why the day of the Sabbath is not a day like any other day. It's not a day where you're going to go and do all your chores and you're going to do all your house cleaning and you're going to do a day like every other day. It is not a day where you're going to work. It is a day that is set apart that we can spend time in the word of Yahuwah, to spend time with Him in His presence, with the children of Yahuwah all together in community. This is what they would do. They would go into the synagogue. They would read the scriptures. They would fellowship. They would be a day set apart. It's not a day like every other day. It's not a day like every other day. It's not a day where you're going to get up and now you're going to be able to go and do your ironing and your washing and your cleaning and all of this. It's not a day for that. It's a day set apart. It cannot be profaned. It cannot be treated like a day like every other day. It is a day that is going to be set apart. It is a day that you're not going to do the things that you do every day. It's going to be a day that is the day that you'll set apart. So if you work and you don't have time to be able to spend time in His Word and spend time with Him and spend time, this is the day that you would do that. This is the day that we're going to spend around His Word, where it's about Him. It's about His Word. It's about what He wants. It's a day set apart for the glory and the honor of His name. It's not a day for us to be able to go and work and do all the things that we would do like we normally do every other day. This is a day that we will not profane. We are not going to dishonor. We are not going to treat it as common. Let's have a look at Exodus chapter 20, where it talks about this Sabbath. So in Exodus chapter 20, verses 8, when they were given the 10 Commandments, we see, remember the Sabbath day to set it apart. 6 days you labor and shall do all your work. But the 7th day is a Sabbath of Yahuwah, your Elohah. You do not do any work. You, nor your sons, nor your daughter, nor your female servant, nor your female servant, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. So do you see, this is not a day that you are going to do work. You are not to work on the Sabbath day. You are not to have a garden boy. You are not to have your cleaner. You are not to have these people on the Sabbath day. Not you, nor your people who are in your home is to work, not even your animals. So the animals are not going to go plow the land. The animals are not going to go do work. It's not a day for you to work the mundane things that you do every other day. It is a day that is to be set apart. He says, for in 6 days Yahuwah made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested the 7th day. Therefore Yahuwah blessed the 7th day and set it apart. So it is a day of rest. That's why I'm saying it is a day of rest of your chores. It is a day of rest of the things that you would do every other day of the week, that now you would rest from it. That it's not a day for you to go and work. I know that like in Israel, on Friday, they really prepare everything already by Friday everything is prepared so that on Shabbat they are totally prepared with their food, with everything, so that they don't have to worry about doing all of that on a Shabbat. And that would be the best thing for you to do. Look, if you're going to go make yourself a sandwich or something like that, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But generally, what a person should do is on the Friday, try and prepare your food. You're going to have a meal. Prepare extra food so that you can already put all of this food together so that on the Shabbat, it's not a heavy burden for you to go and sit and make a whole meal now for you to be able to eat. Try and keep it simple. Right, let's continue. So if we have a look at Exodus chapter 31, let's go to Exodus chapter 31 from verses 13, and it says, and you speak to the children of Israel, saying, my Sabbaths you are to guard, by all means, for it is a sign. So look and see, what is the sign? What is the sign that we are Abba Yahuwah's children? the sign between me and you throughout your generations, to know that I am Yahuwah, am setting you apart. So what sets us apart from the rest of the children of the world? What sets us apart? What sets the land of Israel apart from the rest of the world? The rest of the world keeps their Sabbath on a Sunday. But when does Israel keep their Sabbath? From sunset Friday to sunset Saturday is when they keep the Sabbath. Then that nation is not like any other nation, because they know when the Sabbath is. And so there's no confusion of when the Sabbath is, because in that land, that is the day that is to be set as the Sabbath. And like I said, in my Portuguese language, or whether it be in the Spanish language, we say sábado. Saturday is sábado, which is Sabbath. So there's no confusion of when the Sabbath is. You can't just decide that you're going to do the Sabbath on any day. Oh, I'll just take a day and do the Sabbath. No, there is 6 days the Father worked, and on the 7th day He rested. So there's a 7th day. Who was man to change the Sabbath to a Sunday? Since when do they turn around? The Christians say, oh no, we keep the Sabbath on a Sunday because that was the day He resurrected. We do it the first day of the week. But who gives any man the right to change the Sabbath of when the Sabbath was? We don't keep the Sabbath just because we decided to change it. And then I hear people to say, oh, a Sabbath is any day. No, this is a set apart day. And blessed are we if we are in the nations, because we can keep the Shabbat on the Saturday. And then if the nations, they don't work on a Sunday, then that Sunday is also. But the Sabbath is not the Sunday. The Sabbath is the Shabbat, which is the Saturday, sunset Friday to sunset Saturday. That is the Sabbath. Let's not get it confused. And so he says 6 days, work is done. And then, verse 14. And you shall guard the Sabbath, for it is a set apart to you. Everyone who profanes it shall certainly be put to death. So imagine, in the foundational covenant, if you didn't keep the Sabbath, you would be put to death. For anyone who does work on it, that being shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days work is done, and on the 7th is a Sabbath of rest, set apart to Yahuwah. Everyone doing work on the Sabbath day shall certainly be put to death. And the children of Israel shall guard the Sabbath, to perform the Sabbath throughout their generations, as an everlasting covenant between me and the children of Israel. It is a sign, again he tells you, it is a sign forever. For in 6 days Yahuwah made the heavens and the earth, and on the 7th day He rested and was refreshed. So at the end of the day, this is what the Father spoke. This is His covenant, and we are to adhere to it. And when He had ended speaking with him on Mount Sinai, He gave Moshe 2 tablets of the witness, tablets of stone written with the finger of Elohim. So He wrote with His finger. He wrote with His finger those laws. Now we have a look at Ezekiel chapter 20. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 20. Ezekiel chapter 20, and we have a look from verses 10. And he says, So I took them out of the land of Mitzrayim, and I brought them into the wilderness. And I gave them my laws, and showed them my right rulings, which if a man does, he shall live by them. And I also gave them my Sabbaths, to be a sign between them and me, to know that I am Yahuwah who sets them apart. So yeah, he speaks it again in the books of the prophets, that this was to be a sign between him and them. But now listen to what they did. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness, and they did not walk in my laws, and they rejected my right rulings, which if a man does, he shall live by them. And they greatly profaned my Sabbaths. Then I said I would pour out my wrath on them in the wilderness to consume them. So you see, He is the one who gave the Sabbaths. He is the one who does not want us to profane it. We are to keep it. We are to observe it. We are to shama and we are to shamar. We are to keep it because it is what He wants. Let's have a look at verse 20. And set apart my Sabbaths. They shall be a sign between me and you to know that I am Yahuwah your Eloah. So if you want to be part of a set apart remnant, then the Sabbath is what we have to keep. So a lot of people are disqualifying themselves because they're not keeping the Sabbath. And then if these people turn around and say to me, oh, but we keep the Sunday, we go to church on Sunday. They will go to church on Sunday, and in the church is a coffee shop. And then they will buy their coffee and they will buy everything else that goes with it. And this is the thing that is the big problem, is the fact that people will still want to trade on a Shabbat. There is no trading to be done on the Shabbat. We are not to trade. And so there can be cases where sometimes it's so difficult. But there is no trading to be done. So, like I say, even if these people will have conferences and then they want to sell their things on a Shabbat, what are they doing? What are they doing? A Shabbat is to be set apart for the Father. It is not for work and it's not for trading. Let's have a look at Isaiah 56. Thank the Father that He's got mercy, because if we were to break it in the days of the times of the Torah, in the Old Testament, in the foundational covenant, if you broke it, you would be put to death. Is it that serious? Are we taking Shabbat that serious? Because this is what was being done. Okay, let's look at Isaiah chapter 56, verses 3. And let not the son of the foreigner who has joined himself to Yahuwah speak, saying, Yahuwah has certainly separated me from his people. Nor let the eunuch say, look, I am a dry tree. For thus says Yahuwah, to the eunuch who guards my Sabbath and have chosen what pleases me and are holding on to my covenant. So you see, now the Father is speaking. Here we see Abba has made a way for even the Gentiles, even those that are not of the true house of Israel, even those that are not part of the 12 tribes of the house of Israel. That was the original 12 tribes that came from the loins of Yaakov. He is making a way for them. And so in Exodus chapter 12, verses 38, let's have a look at Exodus chapter 12. In Exodus chapter 12, verses 38, it says, a mixed multitude went up with them also, flocks and herds, very much livestock. So understand, it wasn't just the children of Israel. And the children of Israel set out from Ramesses and Sukkoth, about 600,000 men on foot besides the little ones. So now, a mixed multitude went up with them too. So was it only the Israelites that went out? No, there was a mixed multitude. So already the Father was making a way. Already the Father was making a way for there to be a house that was not only going to be made up of those 12 tribes. There was going to be those that was going to be grafted in. So this is nothing new of what Yeshua came to do, because already here there was a mixed multitude that came out with the children of Israel from the land of Israel. And so if we have a look at Numbers chapter 15, verses 14 to 16, it says, and when a stranger sojourns with you, or whoever is among you throughout your generations, and would make an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahuwah, as you do, so he does. One law is for you of the assembly, and for the stranger who sojourns with you. So even for the stranger there is one covenant, a law forever throughout your generation. So tell me, how is the Father going to break that covenant? So how do we say he did away with the old covenant and brought a new covenant? He renewed it. Yeshua came to fulfill, and means to fill up. It means he came to enhance. He came to fill it up. He didn't come to do away with it. He came to write it now on the tablets of our heart through the Ruach, but nothing has been done away with, except the fact that the Levitical offerings, the offerings that was done, Yeshua became the perfect offering. So he says, one Torah. So he says, one law is for you of the assembly and for the stranger who sojourns with you. A law forever throughout your generations. As you are, so is the stranger before Yahuwah. One Torah, one right ruling is for you and for the stranger who sojourns with you. So there isn't going to be a different Torah. There isn't going to be a different set of instructions. There is one set of instructions for them all. A law for you throughout your generations is what he says. Then if we have a look at Numbers chapter 32. If we have a look at Numbers chapter 32, verses 11 to 12, let's have a look and see. Now, we must understand something. Caleb, we understand who are the only two that entered into the promised land, apart from those that he chose that were not allowed to enter. So he was going to choose a new generation that had never been in Egypt. There was only Joshua and Caleb. But do you know that Caleb was not an Israelite? He was a Kenizzite. So if we have a look at Numbers chapter 32, verses 11 to 12, and it says, no one of the men who came up from Mitzrayim, from 20 years old and above, so those 20 years old and above that came out of the land of Mitzrayim, not one of them was going to enter. So he said, 20 years old and above is to see the land of which I swore to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, because they did not follow me completely, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Yehoshua, son of Nun, for they have followed Yahuwah completely. So you see, Caleb did not come directly from the tribes of Israel. He was a son of a Kenizzite, and that is a Kenizzite. And this, yet he was part of the house of Judah. So how interesting that this Caleb was not a true Israelite. He was one that would have been in Mitzrayim, that came out with the mixed multitudes. Yet, how obedient was he to the Father, that only him and Joshua make the promised land, and all those that were 20 years and above, none of them were allowed to enter into the promised land, because he was going to raise up a new generation that was going to be able to enter in. And now we continue to read in Isaiah. Verse 5. So if we have a look at the eunuch, so we've read about the eunuch. And to them I shall give in my house and within my walls a place and a name better than the sons and the daughters. I gave them an everlasting name that is not cut off. So these eunuchs, what is a eunuch? A eunuch is one that was castrated. But it also means a chief official. And it was interesting because when I went and looked up this word, it actually means ranking Babylonian official, a high-ranking Babylonian official. So it also means a chief official, which is a high-ranking Babylonian official. And they too, if they were seeking Yahuwah, keeping his Sabbaths, then they too were made away keeping his covenant, then there too was made a way for them to be able to be part of the Father's house. So all the outcasts, everyone that is outcast, Father will gather them into the house. He's the one who makes the way for the outcasts of the house of Israel. He's the one for the outcasts that are totally outcast, that would not have been part of the house. He says, even the eunuch that has been castrated, I'm bringing them in. So he says in verse 6, also the sons of the foreigner who join themselves to Yahuwah to serve him and to love the name of Yahuwah, to be his servants, all who guard the Sabbath and not profane it, and are holding on to my covenant. So here we see also the sons of the foreigner, the nations, the Gentiles, those who join themselves to him, who shall come back to his name and keep his covenant. So we have returned back to his laws, to his covenant, to his way. So understand, it's the sons of the foreigner that serve him, who join themselves to Yahuwah. So they have made a covenant with Yahuwah to serve him. So they serve him. They are those submitted and surrendered to him. They will follow him. They will follow the Lamb. And to love the name of Yahuwah. So they are to love the name. How do you love the name when you don't even know the name? How do you love the name of Yahuwah that you don't even know? You know, this is why I'm saying, do you understand how many times we get back to this name? The name is important because we need to be able to know that name. The name is part of the seal. The name is part of this covenant that is here, that we are to love the name of Yahuwah. To be his set-apart servants, to be his servants, all who guard the Sabbath. So they are those guarding the Sabbath. And not to profane it. So they're not going to profane the Sabbath. They are going to guard it. And are holding on to my covenant. So you see, those that are returning back to the covenant of Yahuwah. So it's coming back to ways of Torah. It's coming back to the fullness of the covenant that was made with the house of Israel. We are grafted into that covenant. And that covenant is what we are returning to. And so we read verse 7 and it says, them I shall bring to my set-apart mountain, and let them rejoice in my house of prayer. Their ascending offerings and their slaughterings are accepted on my slaughter place, for my house is called a house of prayer for all the nations. And so the Father is going to bring the nations to his holy mountain, and his house was to be called a house of prayer, not a den of robbers. It wasn't to be a den of robbers. It was to be a house of prayer. And so if we have a look, and we go look at Micah chapter 4. Let's go to Micah chapter 4. Micah chapter 4 verses 1 and 2, and it says, and in the latter days it shall be that the mountain of Yahuwah, the mountain of the house of Yahuwah, is established on top of the mountain. The house of Yahuwah is established on top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and peoples shall flow to it. And many nations shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahuwah, to the house of Eloah, for Yaakov, and let him teach us his ways. So you see, the Father wants the people to be able to come back to his mountain, where his Torah, his ways are going to be taught, and let him teach his ways, and let us walk in his paths. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah, and the word of Yahuwah from Jerusalem. So you see, that is the center of all places. That's the center of all things. From Jerusalem comes forth the law. And so we thank Abba Yahuwah for Yehuda, who stayed faithful to Abba Yahuwah, that still keeps even though they've added to the word, they still keep the Sabbath, they still keep the feasts, they still keep his Torah ways, and even though they've added many things that is not there, but in that land, you will, even though their calendar is not correct because they've got a calendar that came out of Babylon, where they don't follow the calendar the way that they should, they've got a pre-calculated calendar that is not according to the way Father wanted, because the rabbis are the ones that decide how to be able to formulate the calendar. That's why you can put in the date for the Feast of Tabernacles in 2050 and you will get a date, because it's already pre-calculated. And if you go and you have a look and see in the land of Israel, that is the place where you will understand there will be days set apart for the feasts, and they will keep the feasts. There will be days set apart for the Sabbath, and they will keep the Sabbath. You will not have any buses riding. You will not have any public places that are going to be, no public transport, nothing. Everything will close down on a Shabbat, except for those that are rebellious, that do not want to keep it, but then they are fined. And so the Arabs and everything will be opened, but the Jews, everything of the Jews will be closed on the holy days, the feasts, and on the time of the Sabbath, it will be closed, except for those that want to rebel. So then if we have a look at Zechariah, let's have a look at Zechariah chapter 2 from verse 10. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for look, I am coming, and shall dwell in your midst, declares Yahuwah. And many nations shall be joined to Yahuwah in that day, and they shall become my people, and I shall dwell in their midst, and you shall know that Yahuwah of hosts has sent me to you. And Yahuwah shall inherit Yehudah, his portion in the set-apart land, and he shall again choose Jerusalem. And so this is why the Father is going to bring the people to his holy mountain. And when Yeshua comes, he's going to put his feet on the Mount of Olives, and then he is going to reign and rule from his holy mountain. And then all the nations will come up and keep the feasts, as it is written in Zechariah chapter 14. And for those who do not keep it, there will be no water on their land. So if we have a look, I'm in Zechariah, so we might as well go there. Zechariah chapter 14, and it says, and verse 16, and it shall be all that are left from all the nations which come up against Jerusalem, and shall go up from year to year to bow themselves to the sovereign Yahuwah of hosts, and to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. And it shall be that if any one of the clans of the earth does not come up to Jerusalem to bow himself to the sovereign Yahuwah of hosts, on them there is to be no rain. And if the clan of Mitzrayim does not come up and enter in, then there is no rain. And on them is a plague with which Yahuwah plagues the nations who do not come up to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. So understand, if there was a festival that we are to go up and celebrate, it is definitely the festival of Sukkot. And that is the one at the moment. It's these 4 feasts that still need to be fulfilled. And that is why we are enacting. It's an enactment. We are going up and we are preparing already. So even now, we are preparing to go to Israel, and we are going to go up to Jerusalem for us to be able to celebrate the feasts. And so we will go up and we will celebrate these 4 feasts, and this is what they were having to do, to go up to celebrate the feast of Sukkot. And if they don't, they would not receive rain on their land. And so there is a blessing when you go up and you go and celebrate the feast, and especially the feast of Sukkot. So if there is no other time that people are able to go to the land of Israel, they should at least try and see if they can go at the time of the Feast of Sukkot. Then we have a look at Matthew chapter 21. Let's go look at Matthew chapter 21. Matthew chapter 21, verses 12 to 13 says, Matthew chapter 21. And Joshua went into the set-apart place of Allur and drove out all those buying and selling in the set-apart place, and overturned the tables of the money, overturned the tables of the money changers, and the seats of those who sold doves. And he said to them, "It has been written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers." And so it is. His house is to be called a house of prayer and not to be called a den of robbers. So why are we trading and selling in the house of Yahuwah? And so at the end of the day, we must understand that, I know that when I've been out of church for so long. I left church in 2005. But there at the church that we used to be in, they had made a coffee shop, in the foyer of the church, so that everybody could come and sit down and buy cake and coffee and everything and socialize. So it became a business. And how many of these ministries and how many of these churches are businesses? They are a business. So what has changed from what was then? It's supposed to be a house of prayer. It's supposed to be a house where you're coming to hear the word. It's not supposed to be a place of where you're going to go and trade. It is a place of where you're coming to pray. And so they have made it into a den of robbers. And this is what Joshua was on about, because what were they doing? Instead of them focusing on it being a house of prayer, they made it into a business. And this is what he's going to focus on the next couple of verses that we're going to read. This is exactly what it's going to be all about. So in Hebrews chapter 13, let's just look at Hebrews chapter 13. Hebrews chapter 13, from verses 15 to 16. Through him, then, let us continually offer up slaughter offerings. So understand, listen to what he says. He says, my house is to be, okay, let's read verse 7 again. Them I shall bring to my set-apart mountain, and let them rejoice in my house of prayer. These ascending offerings and their slaughterings are accepted on my slaughter place, for my house is called a house of prayer for all the peoples. So there's slaughter offerings and my slaughter place. So there's these ascending offerings and their slaughter offerings. Now, if we go look at Hebrews, in Hebrews chapter 13, from verses 15, we have a different kind of offerings that we are offering, because understand, we no longer need to sacrifice animals. We no longer have slaughter offerings. We no longer have ascending offerings. There is other offerings that the Father wants us to bring. And so in Hebrews chapter 13, verses 15, it says, through him then, let us continually offer up a slaughter offering of praise. So what is the slaughter offerings? The slaughter offerings of praise to Allur. That is the fruit of our lips. So does everything that come out of our mouth bring glory and honor to the Father? Is our mouths a place that is bringing a slaughter offering? So it's a mouth that is to speak the word of Yahuwah, that is to praise Yahuwah, that is to uplift Yahuwah, giving thanks to his name. And so do you see, we are to give thanks to his name. So not only are we to praise him, but we are to thank him continually for the things that he does for us. I mean, how many times, just as I was trying to get all my packing done and everything done for me to travel. And I'm packing this bag, and I'm looking for this, and I'm looking for that. And I had things that I didn't know where it was. And I don't have the time to sit and spend all this time now looking for the things. And I'll pray, and I'll say, Abba Yahuwah, please, will you help me? And then I will hear him say, go and take that drawer, take it out. What you're looking for is fallen at the back of the drawer. And I pulled out the drawer. And as I pulled out the drawer, right at the back was what I was looking for, the one top that I was looking for. And I wouldn't have seen it because it was at the back of there, and I'd looked for it everywhere and I couldn't find it. And then I was looking for the lock of the bag because I bought a brand new lock of the bag. I looked everywhere. I didn't know what I did with that lock. And the next minute he said, go to the cupboard, open up that one cupboard there in the kitchen. You put it on the top over there. I go and open up the cupboard, and there it is. And then what do? We thank him. We thank him. And we thank him for his goodness and his love and his grace and his mercy. And even if he's not doing anything for you, you thank him for the breath that you have in your body anyway. And so we continue to read. And then let's look at verse 16. And do not forget to do good and to share, for with such slaughter offerings, Yahuwah is well pleased. So you see, the slaughter offerings are the praise, the thanksgiving, and the doing good, and the sharing. As we share with others, as we do good for others, that is part of the slaughter offerings. And with that, Yahuwah is well pleased. So, just because we don't have the slaughterings, we still have other offerings that we give to the Father, and we are to do good for, So, let's read verse 8. The Master Yahuwah, who gathers the outcasts of Israel, declares, I gather still others to him besides those who are gathered to him. So do you see, the Father is going to gather the outcasts of the house of Israel, and there will be others apart from those that are gathered that will be able to be gathered to them. So even now, in Israel, it is really only Judah and Benjamin that is being gathered, and the Father still has his scattered house of Israel that is scattered around the nations of the world that still need to be returning, that still need to be able to come back to the land. And at the appointed time, when Yeshua comes back, he is going to gather us from the four corners of the earth, and we will be gathered, and he will bring us back to the land of where we belong. And now if we have a look at John chapter 10, we see how Yeshua is the one speaking that he's going to do this. So, have a look. John chapter 10, verses 14 to 16, and he says, I am the good shepherd. So you see, Yeshua came to be the good shepherd. And I know mine, and mine know me. Even as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. So he's the one who's laid down his life for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. I have to bring them as well. And they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. So, understand, he has other sheep that he's going to gather. This is why he's saying he's going to bring them all. I have other sheep that I am going to gather into the fold. I have to bring them as well, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. So he is going to gather them. He is going to bring them into this house. He is the one gathering them from the nations. He's the one opening their eyes, and we are going to look at this intently when we're going to look at Ezekiel. So let's have a look at Isaiah chapter 56 as we continue, as we're going to finish off with these scriptures. All you beasts of the field, come to devour all you beasts in the forest. So again, he's back to the beasts. Again, he's back to saying the beasts come to devour, because why? Let's look at verses 10. His watchmen are blind. All of them, they have not known. All of them are dumb dogs, unable to bark, dreaming, lying down, loving to slumber. So do you see, are his watchmen watching? Are his watchmen listening? Are his watchmen listening to what the Father is busy doing? What are they doing? What are these watchmen doing? Do you see, what are they up to? So if we look at Ezekiel chapter 3, Ezekiel chapter 3, from verses 15. Listen to what he says. And I came to the exiles at Tel Aviv and were dwelling by the river. Wait, let me see if I got this right. Ezekiel. Sorry, I've got the wrong verse over here. Ezekiel, verses 16. And it came to be at the end of 7 days that the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the house of Israel, and you shall hear a word from my mouth and warn them from me. When I say to the wrong, you shall certainly die, and you have not warned him, nor spoken to warn the wrong from his wrong way, to save his life, that same wrong man shall die in his crookedness, and his blood I require at your hand. For if you have warned the wrong, and he does not turn from his wrong, nor from his wrong way, he shall die in his crookedness, and you have delivered your being. And when a righteous one turns from his righteousness, and shall do unrighteousness, when I have put a stumbling block before him, he shall die, because you did not warn him. He shall die in his sin, and his righteousness which he has done is not remembered, and his blood I require at your hand. But if you have warned the righteous one, that the righteous should not sin, and he did not sin, he shall certainly live, because he has been warned, and you have delivered your being. And so at the end of the day, the Father will raise up the watchmen that are supposed to be warning the people of the dangers that are there, of the things that are coming, of the things that are on our doorstep. But what are the watchmen doing? What are the watchmen wanting to prophesy? Peace? The watchmen are supposed to be watching. The watchmen are supposed to know what the Father is up to. But listen to what he says. And all the dogs have strong appetite. They never have enough, and they are shepherds. They have not known understanding. So do you see? They do not have the understanding of the signs of the times. They do not have the understanding of what the Father is busy doing. They do not have the understanding of the Father's way and the Father's heart. They are those that are what? They have not known understanding. Because why? All of them look to their own way. Every one for his own gain, from his own end, saying, Come, let us bring wine. So you see, what do they want to do? They want to drink their alcohol, they want to drink their wine, and fill ourselves with strong drink. So they want to drink their wine, they want to drink their strong drink, and tomorrow shall be as today, even much greater. So do you see? Are they turning the people away from the wicked ways? Are they turning the people away from the alcohol even? Are they even trying to tell the people, you shouldn't drink wine, you shouldn't drink strong drink? No, they drink with them. Are they giving the people the unadulterated word? Are they bringing the people back to the truth of the ways of the Father? No. What are they doing? They are doing their own thing. Everything that they do is for the gain of their own lives. So now they have ministries, they have YouTube channels, they have everything so that they can get money, which will be for themselves. But where do they warn the people? Where do they try and teach the people? Where are they bringing the people back to the ways of the Father? So you see, there's those that are just warning the people destruction is coming. But there are those that will warn the people destruction is coming, but they need to teach the people the ways of the Father to be able to bring them back to the Father. Because the people have no shepherds. Where are the shepherds? Where are the watchmen? They are dumb dogs. They're leading the people astray. They are not leading the people to the ways of the Father. They're not bringing them back to the ways of the Father. They're not bringing them back to keeping the Sabbath, keeping the feasts, keeping the Torah ways. Food you should eat, food you should eat, food you shouldn't eat. Becoming set apart, because we are to be a set apart, holy people to the Father. What are they doing? Is this what they are preaching? Is this what they're preaching, that we are supposed to be crucifying our flesh? That we are supposed to be turning from our wicked ways? That we are not supposed to seek our own way? Because this is what they're doing. You see, all of them look to their own way. So instead of knowing the way of the Father, they speak of their own mindset, because it's their way. It's the way that they follow. It's the way that they serve the Father. Every one of his own gain, and so it's for their gain. Just like Yeshua said, my house has become a den of robbers. From his own end. So it's about themselves and how they serve the Father. Well, you know what? There's the way I serve the Father, but I serve the Father you better be serving the Father according to what the Word says. Because you are not, you are not you're not a mountain unto yourself by yourself. You are to be able to come back into this Word and follow what this Word says. That's why Shaul could say, follow me as I follow Messiah. So he was bold enough to say, follow me. Because if you follow me, you will follow what I'm doing according to the Word. Because then you will follow Messiah, because I am following Messiah. So if you follow me, you're going to follow Messiah because I'm following Messiah. Is that what we can say of our lives? And so we're going to close off with Ezekiel. Very, very powerful scriptures. Ezekiel chapter 34 from verses 2. Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say to them, thus says the Master Yahuwah, to the shepherds, woe to the shepherds of Israel, who have been feeding themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flock? You eat the fat and you put on the wool. Your slaughter, the fatlings, you do not feed the flock. You have not strengthened the weak, nor have you healed the sick, nor bound up the broken, nor brought back the straying, nor sought what was lost, but you have ruled them with might and harshness. So at the end of the day, is this what we are doing? Because this is everything that Yeshua has done. Yeshua is the one that's the shepherd. He's the one feeding the flock. He's the one healing the sick. We are more spiritually sick than anything else. Our physical illnesses in our body has to do with our mind, our will, and our emotions. Beloved, I wish above all things that you should prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. That is 3 John verse 2. Beloved, I wish that you should prosper and be in health. I wish above all things that you should prosper and be in health, even as your soul, your nefesh, your mind, your will, your emotions is healed. So most of the sicknesses in our body has to do with the fact that the body needs to be healed because the mind or the will or the emotions is sick. And when we are rebelling against the Father, there will be an open door to open us to sickness. And so he says, to bind up the broken. So we are to bind up the brokenhearted, nor bring back the straying, nor sought what was lost. So he's gone to find those that are lost to come back into the way. But you have ruled them with might and harshness. And so at the end of the day, this is what I'm saying. They will rule us, but they will bring us into harshness, because we will come under the judgments that are coming our way. And they were scattered because there was no shepherd. And they became food for all the beasts of the field when they were scattered. My sheep wandered through all the mountains and on every high hill. And my sheep were scattered over all the face of the earth, and no one was seeking or searching for them. Therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of Yahuwah. As I live, declares the Master Yahuwah, because my flock became a prey, and my flock became food for every beast of the field, from not having a shepherd, and my shepherds did not search for my flock, but the shepherds fed themselves and did not feed my flock. So you see, the shepherds feed themselves, but they're not feeding the flock. Are they feeding the flock the truth of the word to bring them back into the truth of the word? Therefore, O shepherds, hear the word of Yahuwah. Thus said the Master Yahuwah, see, am against the shepherds, and shall require my flock at their hand, and shall make them cease feeding the sheep, and the shepherds shall feed themselves no more. And I shall deliver my flock from their mouths, and they shall no longer be food for them. For thus said the Master Yahuwah, see, I myself shall search for my sheep and seek them out. So you see, he's going to seek for his sheep, and he's going to search them out. And then he's going to give them shepherds from his heart. And the shepherd seeks out his flock on the day. Thus says the Master Yahuwah, see, I myself shall seek my sheep and seek them out. As a shepherd seeks out his flock on the day he is among his scattered sheep, so I shall seek out my sheep and deliver them from all the places where they were scattered in the day of the cloud and thick darkness. And I shall bring them out from the peoples and gather them from the lands, and I shall feed them on the mountains of Israel, in the valleys and on the dwelling of the land. So Yari is the promise that the Father is going to gather us from the four corners of the earth, and he's going to bring us to the land where he is going to have the shepherd that is going to be able to feed us. And so if we have a look then right at the end, and it says verse 22, therefore I shall save my flock and let them no longer be a prey, and I shall judge between sheep and sheep, and I shall raise up over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he shall feed them. He shall feed them and be their shepherd. So praise Abba Yahuwah. Abba Yahuwah is going to raise up for himself a shepherd. And who was that shepherd that he raised up? He raised up Messiah, Yahushua, because he was the master shepherd. And so if we look, I'm not going to turn there, but in Matthew chapter 15 verses 24, Yahushua says, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So Abba Yahuwah sent Yahushua that is going to be able to gather out of the flock the lost sheep of the house of Israel that are truly looking for him. He's going to gather them out. So if you look, Matthew chapter 15 verses 24, and he answered, said, I was not sent except for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So Yahushua is the one that he's the master shepherd, and he's gathering the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And in those, there are those that are being grafted in because they love the Sabbath. They're turning back to his way. So for them, there is also a way that has been made. So praise Abba Yahuwah for his word. Praise Abba Yahuwah for everything that he is doing in this hour, where he's revealing his plan to us, that it's not just by accident that you decided to come onto this path. The Father is gathering his people. He's the one opening the eyes. He's the one who's going to bring the master shepherd that's going to find you. And the more we've read through these chapters, the more you've understood the plan of redemption, the more you've understood the plan that the Father has for you to be grafted into a covenant, into a house, into a people. May Abba Yahuwah bless you all in this day. Shalom, shalom.